Good evening, everybody. My name is Lisa Simmons. I am the executive director and the artistic director of the Roxbury International Film Festival, which takes place this year, June 23rd to June 28th, in person and hybrid. We are really excited to partner with the Wellness Collaborative on this series, this Healing Arts series, and Karen will talk a little bit more about that and the Wellness Collaborative. But we started this last year as an opportunity for us to use films as a catalyst for conversation. So we're here to talk about today a very, very important subject, a very important topic around Black girls and women who go missing, and sort of what we can do about it, how we can support organizations that support this. And so I'm very excited for us to be here in partnership. And I hope that you join in the conversation. This is going to be a very conversational space, and we hope that you use the Q&A portion here to drop in any questions you have, and we'll be monitoring those. We have closed captioned at the bottom of the screen if you need that. And we are recording this session so that it will live on both the ROXFILM site and on the Wellness Collaborative site. So at this point, I'd like to hand it over to Karen from the Wellness Collaborative to introduce herself and then introduce our panelists and then get into the conversation.
Sounds good, Lisa. Thank you so much. And every one of you for being here. This is really exciting. As Lisa said, this is the second season in this collaborative endeavor. We've been really fortunate to partner with Roxbury International Film Festival on this. And essentially, as she said, this is something we're doing each spring, hosting a series of films that we know identify or lift up, address some of the ongoing pressing aspects of health that are impacting the Black and Brown communities. And we especially want to emphasize those that we know have some influence or remedy that could be linked to our emotional and mental well-being. And so these films, as you said, will be accessible for public viewing, these conversations in these hybrid forms, and then followed by these conversations, which we were really excited to do. And at TWC, I'm co-founder of the Wellness Collaborative, along with Dr. Jeanette Callahan, Dr. Robin Reed, and currently our executive team with Dr. Fanta Atkinson as well. Our interdisciplinary approach is really about embracing programming and the power of story and media. We know that film is a central way for raising awareness and upholding the expressive arts as a real pathway for healing and wellness in our community that is rooted in our culture and celebrated in our community. So we're excited to have that opportunity tonight. As Lisa was mentioning, we are going to be talking about the issue of missing Black women and girls. And we felt it was going to be very important, at least in the opening, excuse me, to really talk about some of the content can be very disturbing, as we know. A lot of it is, certainly. This evening's discussion will be associated with film, documentary that are based on true life events and recounts. And we know that this can be triggering and traumatic for folks listening in. So due to the possibility of vicarious trauma, we wanted to make sure that you are aware of that and that we're taking every measure to honor that. Issues of vicarious trauma or secondary trauma can create emotional distress. And we want you to do everything in your power and in support with us to take care of yourself. I will be posting in the chat shortly a little bit of that, some kind of content issues, and also some tips on how to take care of yourself. And at any point during the course of this conversation tonight, Dr. Fanta Atkinson, who's a member of the Wellness Collaborative, a licensed therapist, will be available. And we encourage you, as you're listening, if you need to reach out, certainly do that. It's Fanta Atkinson. I think you'll be able to contact her through the chat if you identify her name. And I can also put that in. Fanta can also make her information known available as well. So we wanted to make sure you were aware of that. And so without further ado, we wanted to get into tonight's conversation. The bios of our esteemed guest will also be posted in the chat. You may have seen that, but I wanted to take an opportunity to welcome them into the space. We have Dr. Tanya Stefford. Hold on, I'm just going to make sure that I am getting everyone's information very, very clear here so we can fully celebrate each of our guests. Let me hold on, make sure we get this here. And I want to make sure that we also have all of their information posted here in the chat. Yes, we'll have that. Dr. Tanya Stafford, who's a dear friend, I must say. I had the great pleasure of meeting her some years ago. A powerful woman, a survivor of human trafficking herself, and she has focused her whole career on eradicating human trafficking, one survivor at a time. She has a doctorate in divinity and a background in early education. And as you can see, her work has spanned the country, working with all types of folks across sector, National Trafficking, Sheltered Alliance. She's also a consultant for many law enforcement and judiciary groups. She's a public advocate, a fierce advocate of women and girls who've gone missing. She's the founder of It's Going to Be Okay, and it's a board member of the TASA Survivor Advisory Group. She's also a mother and a wife and a grandmother, and an upcoming author of And Then I Was Free. So we're so proud and happy to have her in this space. You'll hear more about her. We also have Alexandria Onuoha, who is an applied developmental psychology student right here in Boston at Suffolk University. Her primary line of research has been focused on Black adolescents, their development. She explores this intersection of misogynoir, of far-right ideologies, and how that impacts especially young Black women and girls. She's committed to using her research and her evidence-based practices in higher education, family, technology, and she's done so through a number of different community outreach and groups. She's the developer, creator of ASOS Styles, and she's the director of political advocacy here at Black Boston. We're very happy to have her and looking forward to all that she will be speaking about specifically on her work with missing Black girls and women. And finally, we are very pleased to have producer, director, Carly Rogers. Her film, Missing, was part of what we showcased here tonight, and we're really hoping that everyone had an opportunity to see that. It first premiered at the Roxbury International Film Festival in 2020, and she has so much to say about her personal experience, as well as her work in the industry of film, and we're looking forward to hearing more from Carly. So without further ado, we will open up our conversation. And Lisa, do you want to kick us off? You're on mute, Lisa.
So sure, thank you so much. And again, thank you all for being here. Yes, so as we said, one of the things is using film as a catalyst for conversation. And we were hoping that people had the opportunity to watch two of the films, one of which is Carly's, Missing, and the other one, which is on HBO, that has been supported by Soledad O'Brien, who's one of the producers, as well as one of our, producing, directing filmmakers, Yoruba Richin, which is part of that film as well, and just sort of to use that as a conversation. So I would love to open it up to the panelists to sort of talk about maybe what struck you about either one of these films, both of these films, and what did you find that was particularly relevant in what was going on today in today's world around missing Black girls. So I think I'll start with you, Dr. Stafford. So if you can just give us a sort of like an idea of how you felt about these films.
I could relate to them. I could relate to each one of the films being Black and missing. My story is I was sold at the age of 13 by my mom for drugs. The man that bought me kept me for 10 years. But during that 10 years, even before he bought me and then took me into his possession, I was reported missing and nobody looked for me. Nobody came for me. So I can identify with both of the films with missing Black girls and how we go missing, how we go up under the radar. Because even though my sister told that, she told authorities, CPS and authorities, that my mom sold my sister for drugs, but nobody came to look for me. Nobody asked any questions. It was basically like I fell off the face of this earth. And while in captivity, having 3 children at 3 different hospitals, nobody asked any questions. I had my 3rd child 10 days before my 18th birthday. And not one medical professional said what is going on or stopped to even ask any questions. So I could identify with how we go missing and it's undetected, unreported, and just kind of discarded. and I hate to use that word, but just being discarded as a Black female. And to say after, I resurfaced that, oh, she ran away, or, she was just being fast. I hate that word, but we're labeled. We're labeled after resurface, and especially if we don't get any help. So I related to both of them, to everything that was talked about in the films. It's like I was looking at my life, like truly looking at my life, and like, but I made it and I survived. And I'm doing what I do now, is to reach back and grab the Black and brown girls that look like me, to rescue them and to provide direct services to them. And that's my life and my life mission now, because I love it. I love them. I get so much joy out of those Black missing girls, and to see them thrive and survive now is what I live for today.
I mean, it's so we need to clone you, 5,000, 10,000 times, because I know the work that you're doing is so incredibly important, and that there needs to be that kind of advocacy, and someone like yourself is doing that work. Carly, I want to go to you. You made a film, about this subject. It was a short film, but a very powerful film, and looking at the other film also that we've asked people to screen tonight. Can you just talk a little bit about your your desire, your passion to have made this short film?
Sure. Yeah, it was one of the first films that I made as a film student. And of course, I had no idea what I wanted to talk about. And then I just thought about kind of the things that upset me or make me angry about being Black in America. And this was one of them, being a Black female, and thinking about, if I were to go missing, what would happen? Would there be all of the media coverage? And the answer to that is probably not. And so I decided to make the film as sort of a way to tell people that this was happening. I wrote the script, and of course had multiple people literally ask, like, is this I don't think this really happens. Is this a thing that happens? Do you really think this is realistic? And I had to literally back it up with research. So I just realized through that process how important it was to make the film and raise awareness around the issue, and coupled with kind of this missing white woman syndrome in the media, that also tends to go unnoticed, which is when younger, white women, college-age girls, young mothers, these people, when they go missing and have immediate sort of media sparked in a couple of hours or a day or two. And it's very rarely seen when it comes to missing Black women. So when it came to making the short film, I just wanted to touch on a brief bit of that whole topic. And I'm glad that it resonated with everyone. So that's great.
Excellent. No, and it did, and it was in the Roxbury International Film Festival for that reason, because it's a festival that likes to lift up these conversations that are really important to have, that we often don't have in the Black community. We don't have them among our families. We tend to keep things, close, and that oftentimes is shown maybe as a way, as us not wanting to be open, but it's really about people not understanding, right? Maybe Black culture, maybe understanding what's going on, so you keep it to yourself. And Alexandria, I'd love to get your take too on both of these films from your perspective. I mean, Carly talks a lot, talks about media coverage, and, you are what you see, right? The more that you see things or you don't see, that you don't think that you belong in that space. And so for both of these films, I think it's important to see that, Black girls go missing and no one cares. So can you talk about your sort of a little bit of reflection on that, the films for you?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I think there's two things that strike me. Is the one where Black families are left to do the work of elected officials and law enforcement. And I think this is a reoccurring pattern within a lot of Black communities, is that since its inception, we have been organizing. Black women particularly have been on the grounds organizing and finding things and kind of gathering resources. And I think within each of these films, and thank God for the work of Natalie and Derrica Wilson for doing that, and they were able to bring in that public relations aspect as well as the law enforcement aspect. And I think this is kind of like a call to action for elected officials, is that we need more training. And I think for many of us Black people, law enforcement isn't the first people that we think to call. But I do think that we need to start holding them accountable and our elected officials accountable, because I think the thing that I've noticed for both of the videos is that there are Black women in the streets posting flyers, doing the work. And that is so, when I'm thinking about like emotional well-being, that is a lot to do, and then making calls. And they love doing the work, but they shouldn't have to do it alone. And I think it brings forth the question of what are like the different units, like the Child Justice Unit, Human Trafficking Unit, what are they doing? And I think what's happening is that everyone's working in isolation and not in conjunction for this issue. This is a layered issue that's not just going to take one particular division. It's going to take a lot of people. So that was one thing that struck me. And I think as someone who studies child development and really is passionate about Black girlhood, it enrages me, to Carly's point. It enrages me. It makes me angry, because another thing in the video that many people are saying is that Black children are not seen as children. And when you have that perspective, and when it's basically a cultural stereotype that Black girls, because let's say if they develop at alarming rates versus another racial group, that person is still a child. And I think people don't understand that. So I think this notion of Black children are not children is really prevalent in law enforcement in the way that we do policing.
Absolutely. So I was going to jump in here. Alexandria, you struck me in saying that. I know that as we're thinking about both our professional space and our personal space, these things are often intertwined, right? This is what we bring to the table, Carly said, as a Black woman, as a Black female in the industry of film, or yourself in applied developmental psychology, the lens in our training professionally, but we can't ever disentangle the fact that we're Black women in this space. And I think what I was struck by, I think at one point in the Black and Missing series, I think it might have been Derek or Natalie mentioning, like, I do this work, I'm mother first. And she named that. And I thought that was really powerful. She says, I do this work as mother first. Everything I do is about my children or the future generations. And so when we think about this work and all that we're doing, when you just mentioned how Black children, Black female children in particular, are viewed or seen, it does seem like there's a constant thread in this, right? There's something in the narrative about being less valued, being less worthy, even something as elemental as being seen as less human, right? There's this dehumanization as a part of this. And I know, Tanya, in your personal story, which is so incredibly striking, you talk about this, and obviously in doing this work of rescuing, I would love to hear you more, talk a little bit more about that, some of the statistics, right, that we're often not informed about when it comes to missing people, missing Black girls, but also what some of those conflicts are as you're trying to even raise awareness and having folks really catch on. Can you share a little bit with us about that?
So like Alexandra was saying, it's so true that we're looked at as not being children. Because even when I was having the children, he made all the medical decisions, and even making all the medical decisions, I remember one nurse, she said, "Ma'am, do you want anything?" I was like, "Ma'am, who's the ma'am?" I was kind of looking around like, "Ma'am," but that's how they see me. And I was barely 16, 17 years old, and I was on my second child. And I was going, I'm not a ma'am, but that's how they seen me. In their eyes, I was an adult, and I really wasn't an adult. So it goes back to the way they look at us and see us through their lenses. And then Black girls that are missing, we have, 58% of them that are labeled runaways, or they just got up and left. Then they end up in juvenile. And then they're considered child prostitutes. They're arrested as prostitutes, and they're labeled as prostitutes. And I hate that. I mean, literally, when I say hate, I use that to say I really hate that, because when you go into the juvenile system, you see all of our girls, and they're not getting the adequate help that they really need. I was fortunate enough that when I was rescued, that I was seeing, they took me back to the childhood. So I was able to get help to repair the childhood into my adulthood, so it didn't carry over to my adulthood. And that's what a lot of our girls are lacking and missing, is because, and then don't forget about the boys, 13% of them, and they're Black boys that are sexually abused, molested, raped, and sold as well for sexual preferences. We don't talk about that. All the men that have been reaching out to me about their stories, I've been so taken in by their stories that I'm like, who's telling their stories? These are masculine Black men that were labeled as, they don't know what they are now. Somebody asked me that, well, do they think that they're bi or gay? They're not thinking like that. All they're thinking is, why were they violated? And so we got our boys that are looked at as adult men, not as boys that are getting molested, raped, or abused, and 13% of them. And that number is higher. I guarantee you that number is higher, just like 58% of the girls that's in juvenile and that have been arrested for prostitution. That number is so much higher because it's so underreported. That is so underreported. We are so underreported to where you don't know who's missing. Is why I like being in the community to say, somebody say, well, Auntie TT was here, 3 days ago. So I get to ask the questions of like, where is Auntie TT? Like, can we, and then they say, well, we didn't, like Alexandria said, we fear the police. So we go out looking for our own. Just like Natalie and them brought out, we go out looking for our own. We're going to beat the streets. Let's go find our girls. Let's go find our babies. And they are so damaged, even when we find them, that this is the life that they think they were dealt. Like, seriously, I was fortunate enough that I got the help that I didn't think that was the life for me. And I had children. So my children were all my hope that I had to hold on to. And so that's why I'm so transparent about, I'm a mother first. I really am. I'm a mother first. I'm a grandmother. I'm a wife, but I'm blessed. But the girls get to see that now, to see representation. Carly matters. Alexandria matters. Dr. Craddock matters. Lisa matters. Everybody on here that is colored, you mattered. And the girls get to see that. They get to see different, is why I'm out here in the trenches and doing what I can do to provide for our communities, and especially girls that look like me, and the girls that I hear their stories in my story. Like, I was a child. They were children when they were violated. So everything resonates with me. It's personal with me. A mother first, though. A mother first, like Natalie said, I'm a mama and I want to protect them. But Alexandra said something that was so true. I would want somebody to do it for my children. Like, if it was my child, do it for my child. Like, go out there and look for my baby. Go out there, help me look for my baby. That's what I always remember when I'm rescuing those babies. Is it could be my baby. It could be my daughter. Yeah, my daughter graduated college and she's in grad school now. But if it was my baby, please help my baby. Don't just sit by idly and just go, oh, well, somebody will go looking for her. Hell no, I'm going to look for my baby. And you can join me if you want to, and I will beat on doors. I'll talk some shit to the police. Somebody gonna help me. I'm sorry, I do cuss, but I'm just being real. I'm so real with this is what we have to endure out here. Is our girls have, I have to get on their level. And just like I told one of them today, hey, I see where she was, I see where she been. But baby, let me tell you, we're here for you. We're here for you. Yeah, I'm that advocate. I'm that advocate. Let's get this together. You're not by yourself. And let me give you some other tips, because this baby just 19 years old, she's 10 weeks pregnant.
Yeah.
And it's like that part, but I'm thinking about her baby now. Like, what about her baby? Do it for them other children. I'm a mama first. I'm a mama bear. I'm the mama bear. I really am in the advocacy world. I'm the mama bear. I say what they can't say.
That's great. We thank you for it, Tanya. You're showing up in the place, obviously, that is needed. And we're speaking now to this generational space. It's not lost to me that you're talking about this mama's baby. What about her baby, right? And it goes before us as well. You know, Lisa and I, we've had this conversation before, and even in other forums here around this real disconnection around even detecting or empathizing with Black pain. And we know that this is a very real part of the issue of even connecting to resources, right? So you being the fierce mama bear advocate is coming first as mama, but it's also coming with empathy and connection. You know, this could be my child. And we've had these conversations about those disconnections around even perceiving pain, right? So there's statistics upon statistics in the healthcare world and even among children where health advocates, nurses, doctors literally do not see Black people when they're in pain as having more pain. We're given categorically less pain medication than a white person in the ER. We know that by the age of 10, unfortunately, white children don't perceive their Black peers as experiencing more pain. That gets pretty solidified at age 10, right? A little different at age 5, but by 10, they really cannot even perceive of two classmates, one feeling more pain than the other. So this is something that is generational. It goes across a lifespan. So we see where this is pernicious, and it's really trenchant in our communities. We have to disentangle it when it comes to something like, how do we get them resources for the mental and emotional hurt and pain? You're lifting up the Black men, right, that are part of this missing persons piece that is such a closed part of the dialogue. So I really appreciate you bringing this up.
I just think that that's really, yeah, I mean, it's just all of these things are so incredible. And like what Carly was saying when she was making the film, that people were like, is this really a thing? You know, or I don't understand. Like, you know, so what if, you know, Black people go missing, but you know, why should we care? And I think it's like you said, it's systematic. It's systematic racism. It's, you know, something that we have been dealing with since the beginning of time, and it is infuriating. And you get to the point, and maybe you all can talk a little bit about this, is, you know, like how can, like you were saying, you know, Dr. Stafford, that, you know, this is my child, I'm going to go look for my child. But even if it's not my child, I'm going to go look. So we see these flyers, we see them come across. You watch Carly's film, you do these other things. Alexandria, she's doing this you know, doing her PhD and her master's, and it's like, but where's my motive? Like how I'm infuriated. Where do I go? Like, how do I get on do I start handing out flyers? Do I make a film?
I think what you do is like Carly did, what drove her to do what she did was, you know, I'm mad now, but how you get involved is get involved. There's organizations that exist. There is organizations out here that you can get involved with that are doing what we are doing. There are good organizations, and there are some that are not so good. So you got to just kind of, you know, feel your way through it. I always say I am pro-Black, but there's some amazing Black women that are running organizations that are good organizations that you can get involved with, and, you know, go knock on the doors with them. Like if there are specific organization targets going and look for missing and Black girls and women and children, go get involved with them. Lend them a helping hand. Volunteer. They have volunteer, you know, information on their websites. Just go. Make sure that, you know, they're a reputable organization. They're not going to re-exploit them. But like Carly did, you got mad about something. And it's like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to tell their stories. I don't care how I have to tell those stories. Is this real? It's real. So here, let me show you that this is real. Let's go over here to the juvenile justice system. Let's go over here and let me show you how many Black girls are in there. That are, there's just 50, they just represent 53%, but I guarantee you it's higher. So that's how you make a difference and get involved is, go to look for an organization that's doing something to help our Black girls in our community.
I agree with Dr. Stafford. And I would also say for individuals that do want to get involved, I feel like this is also about social justice and social justice for Black girls. That is a process. It's not just like one thing. You have to really find your niche. And I think for Carly, that was doing this film. And for me, it was writing an op-ed. Like, I wanted to write something and I wanted to break it down, because a lot of the times within academia, or if scholars are writing about Black girls, it's often academic jargon and it's not accessible. So I wanted to write something that was really accessible and breaking it down and really saying, like, elected officials, community members, we need you. We need all of this. And it's not necessarily about calling anyone out, but it's just like, do what's in your job description. Like, you're supposed to improve the well-being of people. And this includes Black women and Black girls. So I also came from a place of rage. And I also came from a place of, a lot of people are online. And I know a lot of people will review newspapers and op-eds and things like that as another source of media. So I was like, this is a way that I can also enter into this conversation and really break it down for people, because a lot of people don't understand this issue, that it's layered. This is linked with human trafficking, and I was trying to explain that. This is also linked with intersectionality and how Black girls, because of their race and gender, they are viewed a particular way, and also bringing in education to this as well.
I think to jump on something Alexandria just said too, on the simplest level of something to do, like social media is huge these days. You know, it's so simple for things to go viral and then people see it. But in terms of people being missing and how helpful media is, I know, especially in the Boston area, people will post, you know, missing girls, missing kids, flyers just on Instagram, and just sharing that in a community can go so far. Like, if you saw the doc of, you know, they finally made the news and then that Uber driver was like, oh, she was in the car, but without seeing her face, you wouldn't know that. So even if you're able to just share a simple post online and someone might see yours and say, oh, I think I saw her at the corner store earlier, or something like that, it will go a long way, even though it seems like, oh, it's just Instagram. It's so easy to pass those things and not think about it, but to stop and think about it for just an extra second, and it might help someone. So I think that's important too.
Yeah, I want to add in as well is that schools and education, like, that's the place where children are. And Dr. Monique Morris, who's the author of The Criminalization of Black Girls, there was a specific statistic where it was Black girls are 4 times more likely to be expelled than white girls. And I think people are just like, okay, like expulsion, but no, like, you're literally pushing Black girls out of school. So there is, what other options if they're pushed out of school and they don't necessarily have the resources to begin with? That leads the pathway to substance abuse. It leads to mental health. It also leads to human trafficking. So I know educators, I have a ton of respect for educators, and they do a lot of work, but also I also think this goes to the point of, like, everybody needs to kind of keep their eye out and really inquiring about, you know, as simple as, how was your day? How can I support you? And really seeing Black girls in that way. And I think our schools are also areas where manipulators will go in and also infiltrate, in that trauma bond aspect as well.
So that's so true, Alexandria. That is so true. The schools is why I really chose to do a curriculum that traffic, you know, officers of traffic in persons, is to target schools, to give them, you know, what it really looks like out here, not just what you're, you know, writing about. And I was really happy about, you know, when they used all of my stuff to, you know, give to educators, and just something simple as consent. You know, you have the right to change your mind. To tell a child when I'm doing those workshops is, if, you know, well, the teenagers, you know, getting to the teenagers, but also with the elementary side, is everybody is not a trusted adult. Like, you know, uncle might not be a trusted adult. So I teach them that as well, is no. Don't tell that child to trust me because I'm the adult here. No, you don't trust every adult. If that adult is telling you to do something wrong, then you need to tell somebody that you do trust, because a teacher can tell you to do something wrong too. So I wanted to make that clear to a child. And then when we get up to the school ages, you have a right to change your mind. If you are right in the middle of sex, if you are right in the middle of anything, you have a right to say no. You have a right to say, I don't feel like I want to do this. And then it becomes something else. That child on the playground, I'm not going to tell him to get off of that swing. Why don't we teach him how to say, I'm not done yet. And as soon as I'm done, then you can have the swing. But not, it's Johnny's turn. No, it's Johnny's turn when I get done. So it's teaching them their personal space. And I teach, I taught my kids this, and I teach other children this. Your personal space is your personal space. So this is what I love to do, is so that they won't fall into the trap. But with those girls that's getting expelled, Alexandria, just think about when they get expelled, they have nowhere to go. And they're at home with a rapist. They're at home with a molester. They're at home. And I was so grateful that when I was in elementary school and I was getting molested on a regular basis by my mom's husband, because 90% of girls, before they're trafficked or sold, they have been molested. You have to understand that. My molestation, it led up to my cell, to the cell of me. And I would get into fights in school. I was a fighter. You could pay me to fight your fights. My principal never sent me home. He found another alternative for me because I begged him. I said, please do not send me home. And I didn't tell him why, but it's like he knew not to send me home because my mama's husband was a truck driver and he was at home. And I knew I would be free range for him all day. So I was like, just don't send me home. He said, you know what, Stafford? He said, I'm putting you in choir. And choir literally saved my life. I can't sing to this day, but I can tell you, choir, while I was in choir, I did the best that I could do. I got into plays. It was a getaway from me. So they didn't send me home. What they did was kept me in school. So it actually prepared me, for when I was sold. It's like I had that outlet. So you have to go back to stop sending them home. If you got educators on here, if we trust you, we will tell you. We will tell you. We will tell you what's going on at home. And like Miss Lisa said in the beginning, it's time out for what goes on in here stays in here. That's in our Black community. What goes on in here stays in here. I'm tired of the family secrets. The family secrets is what has killed us, what is killing us. And it leads to that generational trauma. It's all generational trauma. That's all it is. It's just a cycle of trauma. She was molested and abused. This last story that I did with Channel 8, I remember as a lady reached out to me. The guy that abused her sisters, their children. It was 3 generations. 3 generations. He is now in jail. After 3 generations. It took 3 generations. It's just a cycle of trauma.
Cycle of trauma.
And this is the whole thing, right? Is like, how do we break that cycle? Like it's sort of like literally what you're doing, Dr. Stafford, is going in and breaking that cycle. And I think that, everyone here and for me, just listening to this, and listening to you all talk about that, it's sort of like, what more can I do? And I think that what Carly was talking about too, about media, right? I mean, we live in a visual media world. Like everything you need to know is on Twitter and Insta and Facebook, and that's where people are living, and that's where they're getting their news. And I think that, it's sort of like when they were doing campaigns about drugs and don't do drugs. There was a whole national campaign about that, right? And police officers were taught how to deal with people, and kids were taught anti-drug, stuff in schools. And I'm just thinking, like, well, that's what we need. We need like this sort of like national policy around, so that, it was sort of like when they were doing rape kits also, and saying like, you need to have these women go to the hospital and get tested. Well, the cops aren't going to do that because they don't want to deal with that because it's not their issue. But it's like, no, it is, because this is how it affects all of these people. So like, I'm just, sort of just saying the obvious, but it's sort of like, media and the way that we can get policy changes, I think, is where it needs to come from.
And I will just say, you know, this is everything that you're saying, Lisa, and everything that's been mentioned. Even when we think about the work of the Wellness Collaborative through this interdisciplinary lens, like this intersectional lens, none of these things are operating in silos. They are not, because we're talking about one person, one family, one whole, right? Where these fragmentations that we are operating in the system is hurting us, we know. So whether, you know, you brought up before, Tanya, you know, these sites, I think sites of hope, right? And sites of potential danger, right? Looking at the vulnerability and the deficiencies in our community, whether that's the school or home, right? Or in the community itself. And the power of media can be an incredible lever for change, right? So that we know that this is an access point. This is something that we can access to really make a difference. Or to Alexandria, like using the, you know, I'm going to do an op-ed. I'm going to figure out when this, you know, you're intersecting your scholarly pursuits with getting it out there and demystifying it, right? Not using all the language that kind of keeps us apart, but really brings us into the fold and raises awareness. So I'm appreciating all of the voices that are here. And I think as we go forward, really thinking, what are some of these concrete steps? What are some of the things that we can do? And I know that there's questions in our chat, folks have been asking. I am appreciative of the fact that we're thinking about it from all these different lenses. So I don't know, I'm going to invite our intern. We have Audrey Maggiero, who's here on the line, who's working with the Wellness Collaborative. I don't know if you would like to help to lift up some of the questions that have been coming up in our chat here, or we can look at them together.
Yeah, most definitely. So the first one came in, or I think was a suggestion, was from Andrea. I hope I'm saying this correctly. It's Andrea or Andrea. They said, I wonder if it would help if Black children on fictional TV shows and films were more often played by children with a more mature look, although actual youngsters would be helpful. There's no excuse for treating a child as an adult. I just thought that filmmakers could help by telling children's stories with, say, a 13-year-old who looks 18 and yet is playing all of the middle school life of a 13-year-old. They tend to cast very young yet looking children to play the roles.
Interesting take.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting take for sure. I mean, what I think is the most important, you know, I have a lot of friends as well that are Black filmmakers, and we all kind of have different segments of what we want to do. And I think a big thing is films for kids that are about kids just experiencing life, and, you know, adventure movies and things that, like Disney movies and things growing up that they don't get to see themselves in. So I think part of that does come from a casting issue of not having young kids playing kids or the opposite. But I think it's also subject matter. A lot of times, you know, Black teens and films about being a Black teen are about a trauma that's related to something going on, you know, in the day-to-day. So I think the biggest thing is it's sort of translating that into films that they can just enjoy, that we can all just enjoy, and can sort of humanize kids a little bit more so we can see them as kids. And I mean, it goes so far as Ryan Coogler, for example, his first film was Fruitvale Station, which drew attention to something major that happened. It's a social justice topic. And then he eventually creates Black Panther, which gives a whole population of people the opportunity to see themselves for the first time as superheroes and scientists. And so I think that comes along with the casting as well, and just giving everyone the opportunity to see themselves and others to see us as more than just a traumatized Black person or a teenager who's acting older than they are and that kind of thing. So
I think that's a really important thing. And I want to just sort of, before we go to the next question, Audrey, just lift up something Alexandria said before when we were sort of meeting to talk about this conversation, and that was about joy, right? Can you just sort of talk a little bit about that, Alexandria?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what Carly said. I think in terms of film, I think it is important to identify like historical moments. Like when I think about Ava DuVernay's When They See Us, like that is something that actually happened to Black young men. They didn't even know each other, and then they ended up in a really tough situation, and it was because our legal system is inherently racist. But I also think that we need like books. So we need children's books. We need films that really talk about what does it mean to be a Black girl? Like, what does Black girlhood mean? What is it? Why do you love being a Black girl? And I don't think we have that. Even the Disney shows that my little cousins watch now, it's totally missing that. And we're missing the voices, like the voices of Black creatives to be in those rooms. So I think facilitating joy means dance, it means art, it means legislation too. Like, for example, the Crown Act that was, I believe that the bill was passed in Massachusetts, and the Crown Act was first passed in California, and that's banning natural hair, like discrimination against natural hair. But I also think that is a site of joy. Like, if you're a policymaker, that is a site of joy, because we know how hair is important to us. So I'm thinking about different ways like that, but also like within schools, girl groups, like facilitating joy in that way. So, and also I often think about using a strengths-based approach, and that really means what are the strengths that Black girls have, because it's not like we don't have any, and we need to stop looking at Black girls as if they're lacking something, and they're not. They have all of the tools. It's more about the support and the resources of our community to emphasize that. So that's what facilitating joy means to me.
Nice. Thank you so much, Alexandria and Carly. The second question we're getting from Jeanette. The question is, once rescued, where are the young girls placed to receive the support that they need to heal?
Oh, I love that question. So I provide direct services. I was just listening to Alexandria. I love just doing what I do. It's just an amazing journey. So I do provide direct services. So once rescued, they come into our program. We are 2 years. So the first 4 weeks, we just let them sleep. And the reason why we do that is because they haven't had sleep. And then not only that, we don't know when the last time they had eaten. So we feed them, we allow them to just do what they need to do and how they need to do it. And it's just like an amazing journey. So we give them life skills, job readiness, therapy. Yes, we have trauma-informed therapists that are on our teams. So that's so vital to their survival, and then their thriving is their trauma-informed therapy. So we have therapists that has joined the teams to provide those services for free. And then other organizations lend me a hand to be able to provide the resources, grants and different things like that in order to give them, get that therapy for them. So we are an organization that's out here that's providing their direct services. I have 4 locations. I am full in all of my locations. And I am getting ready to get another baby. So we're going to squeeze her in. I think I seen one of the questions was, do I operate in Boston, or do I operate everywhere? I do operate everywhere, because this next baby, Black Girl Magic, she's coming from a state that I got to go pick her up in. And I'm just so excited about her. She's a makeup artist. She's 18. And another organization reached out to me in this particular state and asked me if I would take this baby. She was just rescued. And so I was like, okay, I don't have any room, but we're going to make room for this baby, because I really, after doing her intake, I was so excited about just her alone, and her name. Oh my God, her name was just magic. And just thinking about it, but I provide direct services. So they're not just on their own once they are rescued. We give them everything that they need to survive and thrive. Back into the space that they came out of, or getting ready to go into their new spaces. Some of them can't be reintegrated with their families, so we don't encourage that. And through the therapy, they get that part to their new family and different things like that. So I do play mama to a lot of them, and other women that have joined the organization and volunteer with the organization, they play mama to them. And so that they thrive. And then we teach them how to parent their children. Actually, because when you save one, you save a generation. And I don't think people really understand that when they come in with their babies, and we teach them how to not allow their children to get abused, or them to abuse their children, that is just like, seeing that and to see the babies, oh my gosh, I love going to the house because there's babies at the house, and just to see them in an environment, a safe environment, is what it's about. That's what it is. It's stopping that generational trauma. It stops here. And so we teach them how you change your baby on a regular basis. You don't have to worry about it's just one diaper and I got to keep this diaper on him for, you know, the rest of the day until I can get some diapers. No, we keep them stocked up. They don't have to ask for anything. They don't have to ask for pads. They don't have to ask for tampons. They don't have to ask to go to the doctor. We already provide that. We got an OBGYN that is Black girl. She's Black and she provides those services for free. I get excited about this part is because you just don't understand the sisters that have joined in to help me to provide all these services for them. And this stuff comes out of their pocket. And we pay for their meds out of their pockets. So yes, my reach is all over. I'm reaching everywhere. If I can save them, if I can save one, I can save a generation. Damn it, if I save two, I'm doing good. If I save three, I'm just like, yes, girl, I'm doing it. Yes, I'm gonna go get our baby.
It's infectious. So
I love it. Like
we're gonna share with the attendees not only this video, but also the resources. So please let us know. Yes. And also people will want to get in touch and see how we can do that in our own cities, in our own spaces. And if they're operating, how we can help support them in these particular areas, because we know
trauma informed. Yes. We teach you how to be trauma informed, because you have to be trauma informed when you are dealing with this particular, environment, these particular people, these young girls, because if you're not trauma informed, you will re-traumatize them and you will re-victimize them. And so we teach you how to be trauma informed. Like you can't do this. You can't tell them, well, I'll be over there at 10 o'clock and then you get there at 12 o'clock. They're not going to trust you. So your word is your bond with them. And then not only that, don't hold anything from them. We are teaching people this because when you re-traumatize them and re-victimize them, they'll go out there and be like, well, hell, that's what my pimp did to me. So she's telling me the same thing that my pimp did to me and my trafficker did to me. So I'm just you're no better than them. So I'm just going to go back out there. So we show them differently, but we also teach the law enforcement. We teach hospital staff, we teach airline staff is to how to be trauma informed when it comes to this environment, is because it's vital to that first responder. Carly could be a first responder. If somebody reach out to you and say, Carly, hey, I got this girl, and then Carly calls this girl, she's gonna bond with you, Carly. And you gotta know how to bring her in, but not only that, she's gonna reach back out to Carly because you're the first responder. You can't drop her like a hot potato. You can say, well, I did my part, I'm just gone. It's a bond that they form with you because you're their first responder. They might tell you something that they never tell me, but I can teach you how to bring that in and then pass them off with a nice passing and not just drop you like a hot potato. Mm-hmm. Yes, I get excited.
It's wonderful, Tanya, to see you. You're embodying the joy we were speaking about, right?
Oh, thank you.
Showing up in ways that are so very important. Even this last piece about, the first responder, that the healing happens in the community. So alongside being trauma informed, I like to say trauma informed and healing centered, which is what your work is doing, right? So that we're centering the healing and involving the community. We saw even in the film, it was the Uber driver, right? The Uber driver who was able to get the tip that actually led to saving the girl, and he gave the tip to the advocates in the community. So we can't underestimate the power of the community wherever you sit. If you're the airline person, the banker, the shop owner, the hairdresser, the person next door, whoever it is, the folks at school. So raising this awareness and getting involved together is these parts that we're talking about, the prevention and the intervention. So very important. We know that we're coming to the close. I know that we have a resource list that Audrey just posted. All of your questions are so very important. If folks want to hang on, we can certainly maybe take a few others, but we also will have this posted, right? So that we'll be able to also follow up. If there are specific questions that you have for any of our panelists in the resource list, their contact information is at the bottom. And I'm certain each of them would be happy to address any of those. I did want to make mention as we are closing out, that this is so very important, the issue of Black missing women and girls. It is inextricably linked and so very important. We'd be remiss to not mention the pervasive and the horrific tragedy of the murdered and missing Indigenous women across this country. We know that our fate and our fights are intertwined. So it is very important as we're coming in this work, we know that, better together, but certainly the Black and brown women who are both Black and Indigenous, that these are communities and this fight is going to have to happen in ways that it's in the collective. So we wanted to make sure that we lifted that up in this space as well. There's much work to do.
Yes, I want to say thank you to everybody. I know someone was asking what Carly's next film is, and I was going to say what it was because it's actually been submitted to the Roxbury International Film Festival. But I'll give her an opportunity to say that. And then just any last words, each of you, that you want to share with our audience. So I'll start with Carly and then to Alexandria and then to finish it out with Dr. Stafford.
Yes, so my next film, which Lisa gets to check out first, it's called Color. It is another short film about a Black police officer on her sort of first night out ever and her white partner, and they encounter a Black teenager on the street sort of late at night. So it's sort of her journey of figuring out what to do in that situation. So that is technically my thesis film, but it's my first film outside of school. Yeah, excited.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen and Lisa. This was amazing. Black Boston, we are having an event in July. It's called Ball for Black Girls. We're doing a basketball tournament to raise money and donate to organizations that are supporting Black girls and human trafficking and violence and intimate partner violence and other forms of violence, but more details to come soon. But that's gonna be in July. So someone said Carly plays basketball, yay!
That would be my mom. I do, yes. That's what I did back in Boston all those years. Yes. So basketball tournament, I love it already.
Great. I do too. I love that. I love Ball for Black Girls. I love it. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you for having me. Dr. Craddock, I love you. I fell in love with her when I first met her. She's one of my mentors with her friend, Dr. Francois. I just want to say everybody can do something. Like being here tonight, you can't say that you don't know anybody that was trafficked. Look at me. And don't pass her up on the street either. Everybody can do something. Get involved with somebody or something that will, what's your passion? Your passion has to be what motivates you to do something. Like Carly was, hey, I'm mad because of this. And now your next film is Color. Oh, I just love it. So everybody can do something to highlight somebody or something that is going on in their communities. Reach out to us. If you're unsure about what to do or how to do it, reach out to us. We will give you guidance and directions on what to do, how to do it. And if it's a baby that you would just come across that you just really don't know what to do, just let us know. We will figure it out together, but everybody can do something. You can't say that you don't know after today. You can't say you don't know, because everybody here has given you something to take with you. Get involved with an organization that's around you that's doing the same thing. And no, it's only one Tanya. It's only one Dr. Tanya. It is. It's just, I'm not duplicated. So I wish I was. I'm an original, not duplicated. So there's not a lot of me's out there, but there are some me's out there. And I just want to say that the ones that are out there, give them a chance to get involved with them, help them, save our girls and love on them. Even if you don't know their story, every man and every woman is a story yet to be told. And that's what I always remember, and carry that with you for the rest of your life. Everybody has a story to be told. everybody. So I'm just grateful to be here tonight. I'm so happy. I just get so excited when I just see all this melanin going on. It just, you know, y'all just make me happy. So thank you for the invite, to be able to share me with everybody that's on here and what I do, and it just makes me happy to do what I do. Thank you so much.
Stafford, thank you so very much, and each of you. Truly, I can't say it any better when she said, you know, we're each a story, right? You, when I first met you, was a gift walking, and I saw that. And Alexandria, just literally the moments we kind of connected, what an incredible brilliance. And Carly, through the power of your story and your media and your personal giving, how incredibly wonderful to have each of you in this space. And lastly, just to my sister Lisa, this partnership and this collaboration is in fact a healing, and this is why it's called the healing arts. So each and every one of you go well. I love that. Everyone can do something, and we can, and we will. So thank you all for your time this evening, and please join us next. Take care and go well.
Thank you. Night, everybody.
Are we staying on? I know. Oh, okay. I can stay on. I'm excited. Somebody asked a question about the men. There are not a lot of, I think this is where it happened. It's the after stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But there's not, it is, there's not a lot of places or things for men. Is why I want to tell the men's stories. Because after my news story, I was endowed with a lot of Black men that had been abused, raped, and molested. And I was just shocked, you know, not really shocked, but to see them reaching out. And it's like, who's telling their stories? And so there is not, if you're still on here, sir, there is not a lot of places or resources for men. There isn't. It's what I want to change as well, because it's a lot of Black men that reached out to me.
I think another question on that topic was, how do we also incorporate men into the recovery of damage? I think that's a very important question as well.
Just the same way that we're doing it with the women, but we just have to have that resource or somebody being in the forefront to be able to do that. And that's what we don't have, because a lot of men, they tend to want to be guided by women, but if it's another man that's actually doing it, that has been through something, it actually works better. If they see somebody that looks like them, representation really matters. But there's not, white men are doing it, but they really can't relate to Black men and what Black men really go through. And I also say that all Black men that have been through something isn't gay, or it wasn't your fault that what happened to you happened to you. And I think they need to understand that and see that. And if it comes from a Black man that is offering resources and providing direct services, I think it tends to be better. And I think Dr. Fatima, she can probably, Fanta can speak on that as well.
I mean, I think that's really was one of the reasons why we wanted to really work closely with the Wellness Collaborative, because people don't know Black therapists, and they're always like, well, I can't find somebody. I don't know anyone out there. And so part of this whole healing series was to uplift the Wellness Collaborative, and to let people know that they're here for you. They're a huge resource in the community, and even outside of the community, because you're right, you oftentimes don't feel comfortable going and talking to someone else. Yeah.
And that's where it starts at, is right at home, really and truly. And we have it's a lot of Black therapists out there, great Black therapists. It needs to be a resource provided where they can go to get to those direct services. And I don't really know how to do that. I don't know who does that or who's doing that. That's not my area, but to know that therapy was a way of life for me, and it still is. I go to therapy every Tuesday. I freaking love therapy. That's just, you know, that's where it is. I got to work out and I got to go to therapy because, you know, I give out so much. But to get it back, and mine started off with Black therapists. I had Black therapists, and it was Black female therapists that was vital to my survival. And to see somebody that looked like me, I never seen anybody that looked like me. because everybody that they took us into was a white person. But when I encountered these Black females, I was like, what you're doing? You know, and then when they told me what to do, I did it. Like I was just like, I didn't know hesitation.
I feel like our next thing, Karen, needs to be, you know, it's okay to go to a therapist.
Yes.
You know, because, you know, in the Black community, we don't do that. It's like, what do you mean you're going to talk to somebody? Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you going? It's like, no, I need to go in order to, but what are you going to talk about? Are you going to talk about us? Are you going to talk about the family? Like, what are you going to talk about?
I talk about everything. I talk about you.
Normalized. It needs to be like you need to go. Yes. Especially now in this day and age.
Yes,
absolutely.
Especially
and
now.
So this is definitely, it's one of the missions, it's one of the core parts of the Wellness Collaborative, is this kind of intertwining it and normalizing it. We know that the stigmatization has got to be removed, and it's telling our stories, but it's both in intervention. We know that there's mental health and help that is needed, or understanding mental illness, but then there's just mental wellness.
Yeah.
Right? So that making therapy something like, oh, it's just something you do. You know, I've often said everyone should have a dentist, a primary care doctor, and a therapist. It should just be normal. Like it should
be normal, normalize being, you know, it's not okay to be okay. And it's okay to go to therapy. You can pray to Jesus, but go to therapy.
Yeah, you need both. You need
both. He made therapists.
Yeah, literally.
That's what I tell him. Like, you know, pray and go to therapy. Yeah. Don't keep telling people. I tell people all the time, they be going, girl, just pray about it. Don't keep telling them people to pray about it. And tell them go get some help.
Yeah, I think it's also because within our culture, when we think about health, it's like only physical. People don't really consider, you know, our mental health as a part of our whole being.
They don't. And I love therapy. I'm telling you, I did what them ladies told me when they told me don't date for 5 years. And I was just out. I was just 24 years old. They told me don't date for 5 years. I didn't date. But they saved me. You know, I was just doing what they told me to do. But one of my therapists came back years later and she said it saved your life. Because when they started explaining about STDs and, you know, so AIDS was out there and different things like that, it was like, you can get this, you can get that. I was scared of everything. So if once that 5 years is up, if somebody talked to me and if they coughed, I thought they had something. So it's like, no, I can't talk to you because you coughed. And I was literally going around saying, I was like, no, you coughed, you might have something. Where's your papers at? Where's your AIDS papers? Where's this at? Here's mine. I'm carrying my papers around. So I did exactly what they told me to do. But she said that saved my life. You know, so it was basically like just having that outlet. And now as I look at my therapy journey now and my therapist now, I love my therapist. I mean, he's not the same color as I am, but I had Black therapists and that just happened. But it was just like an amazing journey. So, but I couple my girls with women that look like them, like they're all Black therapists, because representation does matter. And then they need to see somebody that looks like them. And it's a lot of them out here, but they're just not found. So how do we bridge that gap too?
Sure. And I know we're just in that kind of after conversation, but so much of what you're saying, even just now, Tanya, talking about your therapy journey, I think is an important way to kind of name it and frame it, especially when we often think about therapy as kind of one-off. It's got to be something is wrong. That's the only way I go. And then it's also maybe just one therapist. You know, but you can have multiple for periods of time. It could be a short-term therapy for 4 weeks to work out something very specific. It could be for, 3 years later to come back to something else. It could be a number of different therapists. And there's a range of different types of therapies. I mean, just to kind of continue to keep it open and understand that this is flexible to meet the needs that you have at the moment are so very important. And even while knowing for this immediate need for these girls, important of representation. This week in particular, I know that we've all just had a lot of conversations and thoughts on our mind about this, right? What does this mean to the words we use? Who do we see? But the idea of protection is coming up a lot. We talk about feeling cherished and precious and tender. And do our Black girls hear that or feel that? And then when they feel protected, is it done in a way that is healthy? Is it contributing to healthy relationship? And so all of these conversations just feel like they're really pertinent and timely.
Yeah,
all.
it is. It
Many,
really
many
is, because that representation to teach them those boundaries of healthy relationships.
Yes.
And, you know, like I tell them, I'm married, and I tell them that it's every relationship matters, but marriage is work. Marriage is work. Marriage is nothing to take lightly. And then, you know, even when they're riding with me, to hear them, you know, my husband, they'll hear my husband talk to me and be like, say, hey, baby, you know. So it's showing them differently. It's showing them that all men aren't bad. All men are not going to buy you, and that there's good, healthy relationships. So they have to see what we're trying to tell them as well. So those healthy boundaries, is setting up those healthy boundaries really matters in everything that we're doing. So I'm really particular about that within our organization, is that representation. Like you say, we go for different reasons. Yes, my journey has been over 20 years, but my therapist told me like this, and there's going to be different periods in my life that I'm going to need everything. And that's the truth. Each stepping stone is going to be a different stepping stone, and I need help for this. He told me like this: there's a pile of shit here, there's a pile of shit here, there's a pile of shit here. Now, which shit do you want to deal with first? So we can deal with the shit that's in the middle. That's the really important, you know, that's what you need to tackle first. But you can go on with your life and then deal with this little pile of shit over here that just really, you just piling on top of the big pile of shit. I mean, that's what he told me, and I love him because he's so real. But, you know, and I just keep it real too, because it's like, yeah, you hear what you hear. And I like the therapists that aren't just sitting there going,
Right.
You know, and I'll see you next week. No, tell me that I'm wrong. You might hear something that, no, Tanya, that's, you know, how do you know what they're thinking? That was one thing that Black people, I think we do, be like, she over there thinking that I'm this. How you know what she thinking? You ain't in her brain. So when he told me that one time, I was like, oh shoot, I'm up here really just passing judgment. And I'm thinking that I know what people are thinking. I don't know what you're thinking until I ask you.
Right.
But I think we get that concept in our mind. It's like, girl, she looking at me like I got something on me or something. Some could have been on her mind. And she could have been thinking about what she gonna eat tonight or something like that. So just learning, you know, just learning those little techniques and going, you know, I said that, but I shouldn't have said that. You know, my daughter told me that the day she was saying something in front of somebody. And I was like, well, why would you say that? And she said, because I was just loving on me. I was just like, I'm so glad I'm here. I'm so glad you had me. You know, she's a total hot mess. I love that little girl. But, you know, she said it in front of somebody. And I said, well, the next time you see that person, you should ask them if that offended them. Because you're conscious about it now, because you thought about it. So that's what therapy, all of us go to therapy. My whole family go to therapy. So we are conscious.
All the tools that you've gathered and the ways that you use it in your work and in your family life, it's a beautiful thing, right? These are skills for life, for sure. I love what you're saying. It is a learning journey, and that we can all, you know, move away from the blaming and the shaming. Yeah. What can we do towards the strengths and the opportunity?
I love it. I love the after conversation.
So Karen, I know that one other question. I know we still have 14 people on that are listening to this great conversation, but Jeanette had a question about what can a doctor look for? What are some of the signs we can all look for? You know, I mean, I think about that story about the airplane, about that stewardess who was like, just knew that something was going on with this young girl that was being trafficked, and, you know, put something up in the bathroom, and then the guy was arrested when they landed. But what are, you know, it's sort of like we're around now, the world is opening up again. And these were a horrible 2 years for people who are having to live with their abusers. But now that the world's opening up again, what are some of the signs that we should be looking for?
So one of the signs for in the hospital is if he's speaking for her. My abuser spoke for me. He made all the medical decisions. He told them that I couldn't have any anesthesia when I was having all the babies. He told them nothing. So I had them all naturally. So that's one of the signs. So we see a lot of boyfriending. And boyfriending is where the boyfriend is there. He's actually the trafficker, but he's her boyfriend, quote unquote. He has her ID. He's making all the decisions. She's asking him, what should I put down? So if you're noticing those things about, you know, she's going to say that's my boyfriend, he's the baby daddy, but she's really not knowing who the daddy is because she slept with so many Johns. But he's going to claim that child because he knows she needs to go to the hospital for whatever reason brought her in there. So you can get how you intervene in that is that you get her away from the trafficker. You get her away from him. Just say, oh, she needs to go for a sonogram. She needs to go, you know, we need to take her for an x-ray. And then you can get her privately, but have a social worker back there waiting to ask her the specific questions of, or do you feel safe? Mm-hmm. Are you safe? Do you need help? How can we help you? Or if you can't do that, what you can do is, what I'm teaching now is in the hospitals, ask for a urine sample. If you need, if you are in fear of your life, put a red dot on there. Mm-hmm. If you feel like you want to get away, put a yellow dot on there. If you think that you're going to be harmed after you come out the bathroom, or they think you talk to me, put a blue dot on there. So I mean, I'm still formulating all this, but this is how you can really know if that person needs any help. It's just by asking them, get a urine sample. I need to take her to get a urine sample. I need to take her to get a sonogram. The doctor, you can't come in here. And 9 times out of 10, he's going to leave. They so dumb. They'll leave him. They really are. They think they're so smart, but they're really dumb, because as soon as it takes too long, he's going to leave her. If it takes too long, unless she's his moneymaker. Unless she's his moneymaker, he won't leave her. But then you can have the authorities waiting there to say, we suspect possible human trafficking. And you can get a unit there to where they deal with nothing but human trafficking. So that you get them away from the boyfriend trafficker. Because most of the time they're going to come in saying, that's my boyfriend. That's called boyfriending. That's what it's called in the human trafficking world, it's boyfriending. But if she's the moneymaker, which they call her the bottom bitch, we don't call them that. That's what they call themselves. The bottom bitch is the one that she's been entrusted with everything that he's done. So she has too much information on him. So 9 times out of 10, he ain't leaving. And if he leave, it's because he has to leave, because he don't want to get caught. But then you have to also be ready for the resources for them. Where are you going to send her? Because if you send her somewhere that she's already been, or she's already tried this and she's experienced a not so good experience, she's going to call him and she's going to lead them right back to where you just sent her. And it's probably a safe location where other young girls or women are in there. And then you kind of go with, possible recruiting. So we try to send them to a separate place to where they are not going to be able to get to our girls where they're recruiting, or that person knew that person, or they knew that person when they was on the track. So that's how you get them away from them in the medical setting, is ask for a sonogram, ask for a urine sample or something. And in some hospitals, they are doing this with the docs. And that's the level of what you need to do for them. So those are the signs. If he's speaking for her, if he has her, if they're in the airport, if she passes through and he gives her passport or her ID, and then he takes it right back when she gets through TSA, that's a sign. If she's underdressed, 9 times out of 10, they will be, but they won't be. But if it's in New York and Chicago or Boston, and it's freezing, and they just basically have on some tennis shoes and just a light jacket, and you're going to be in sub-zero temperatures, that's another avenue where you can just say, tap the TSA. They've been trained to say, hey, I suspect possible human trafficking. I suspect this. Look for those signs in the airport. I teach the airport. I teach them all this as well. As children, I had a young lady, she was on the Missing and Exploited. She was a white female. And something she taught me, this was about 3-4 years ago, something she taught me was how they would get her past TSA. she looked young. And so she told me, because we had this specific thing that we have to do when we get to the airport, because she didn't have any ID, I got to take her to the next state. And this girl was saying, she said, all you had to do was just push me on through. I said, excuse me? And she said, Miss Tanya, all you had to do was push me on through. That's what my traffickers do. And I said, well, I'm not doing that because I'm Black and you white. And you're going to get your ass over there and get on that phone, tell FBI what they need to know so they can pass us through TSA. But what she taught me was how they were getting them through at a young age, because they don't require them to have ID. She looked young. He had her ID. He had everything on her. He did not, he just pushed her on through. That's my sister. She's 16. I was like, so they doing it like this? And she was like, yeah, this is how we get through. This is how we was getting to Vegas. This is how we getting to New York. This is how we was getting to Miami. This is how we was getting to Washington. And I was like, so I'm writing notes going, what? And she was like, yeah, Miss Tanya, this is how we do it. Well, we ain't doing that today. You're going to get over there and tell them what they need to tell, because I think I'm going to go to jail because you sitting here telling me to push you on through. And then we had to go through another screening. See, it led us to another screening. Even though we went through TSA, it led us through another screening. So as soon as we got through on the phone with FBI and Homeland Security, they took us to the back and they did another pat down on me and her. Mm-hmm. So we went through 2 pat downs. And it's like, but she told me then that this is how they were getting them through. So you notice signs like that. She was always underdressed too. She was always.
That is such great information. Thank you. I mean, I think that, I'm glad that Jeanette asked that question, because I think it's something that we can all do. We can all be conscious of, just like, whether you're a first reporter or a mandatory reporter for child abuse, it's, these are the things that we should look for. I mean, so we could talk on forever. And, I'm thinking that we should do some sort of follow-up conversation, but the hour is upon us. And again, I'm so glad that people stayed on. It's because it was an engaging and incredible and just important conversation. You all are incredible. You're doing incredible work. We will continue to follow you with what you're doing. And I can't thank you enough. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much. And for everyone for hanging on, thank you so much.
Thank you. And Jeanette, I think Jeanette had that question. I'll answer the last question. No, sometimes they are not able to be reunited with their family. So we become their family, and then other support systems become their family, because it's not healthy. It's not a healthy reunification.
Not always possible, but we thank you for the work you do in the family that you create.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night. Thank you all so much.